Hey, Ranjan.
Hi, Chris. Thanks
Hey,
for
my brother.
joining. How are you,
Yeah,
Chris?
you're so welcome, bro. Yeah. Good to see you, mate. How are you?
Yes, great. Thank you, Chris. Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining on this show, Moments with Masters, with me today. And you are the master of the day. And before we dive into our conversation on this show, let me introduce you to my audience. Chris is a passionate transformative performance coach, trainer, facilitator, and speaker who teaches universal life transforming principles and practices that are designed especially to help business owners, coaches, leaders, and executives to maximize their potential and have a greater transformational impact on everyone they work with. Chris has the ability to decode and teach the universal principles behind transformation, making life changing impact inevitable for you, your business, and for all those you serve. Chris's gift is his ability to uncover the greatest leverage points for change for his clients, able to quickly resolve the invisible limitations and misunderstandings with surgical precision to help them unleash their full potential. He is best described as being professional and practical in his approach to helping others master the mindset, heart set, and skills of getting the most out of life and business. Chris is renowned for his ability to drive people and teams towards sustained and more effortless levels of high performance, whilst maintaining alignment with their true, authentic expression and honoring the true higher purpose for living. Chris has been professionally supporting his clients to reach greater human potential since 2015 as a coach, mentor, trainer, and facilitator. He has built a strong reputation for delivering powerful transformational trainings with many elite level clients such as CEOs, executives, coaches, consultants, international business owners, and companies such as Mercedes-Benz. His life transforming trainings, retreats, and seminars have touched and transformed the lives of over thousands of all over the world. Chris has a diverse background across fields of transformational leadership, psychology, and psycho-spiritual teachings. The three principles uncovered by Sydney Banks, non-duality, ontology, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, various modalities of psychotherapy, including timeline therapy and internal family systems, and behavioral and personality profiling tools. Chris is able to deliver life transforming results for anyone as long as they're open to letting go of what's not serving them. And for more information, we'll be publishing the link of the website. You can visit to chrisjacksoncoaching.com. We'll be publishing that in the description as well. Chris, thank you so much for being with me on this show, Chris. And you're the master of the day.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I feel so acknowledged and honored. So thank you for having me. Thanks, Ranjan. It's a beautiful pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. And reading your bio, your professional bio, sounded like most of my life and most of what I've learned and what I've been doing. And I would love to learn more about you, Chris. Um, yeah, to start with, I'm actually curious to know, when you said 2015, you started serving as a coach and this transformational work. So what exactly happened in 2015 that shifted you or that made you feel that, this is who I am and this is how I must serve people?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, it was actually the year before that, which was 2014, when
Mm,
I took a sabbatical from my engineering career. So I used to be a mechanical engineer. So I used to work in the mining industry, and I invested my life in that industry, training myself. I did an engineering degree at university, and then I spent a decade working
mm,
as an engineer. And so I had this idea in my life that, yeah, once you pick a career, that's it. You just follow it and you get better and better at it. And that was it.
mm,
And it led me to a really, really dark place, a place where I wasn't really loving my career. In fact, I don't think I ever really loved my career. I think actually after the second day of my engineering career, I knew that I didn't want to be doing engineering, but I felt the pressure to study hard, to impress my parents, to be the, to be the, almost like there's this mold that I felt like I needed to fit to be successful in society. Anyway, so I lived that way for a large part of my life, way, way out of alignment with what I was really supposed to do. And then it was in the sabbatical that I took in 2014, where I went to South America traveling. I had a catastrophic breakdown in my long-term relationship with my partner at the time. We ended up breaking up in a hotel room in Rio de Janeiro. And the fallout from that was that my girlfriend at the time gave me a whole lot of negative criticism about me. I thought I was this perfect boyfriend, and it turns out that I wasn't. And so it was a massive slap in the face. It was the biggest slap in the face I'd ever received. My girlfriend criticizing me, telling me that I was a hopeless boyfriend. And that was the wake-up call that I needed. That I realized I really didn't have much self-awareness. I thought that I was better than what I was. I didn't realize how judgmental, how passive-aggressive I was. I had zero awareness. I was blind. I was blind to the negative ways of being that I was expressing in the world. Completely blind to that. And that was a big shake-up. And it was after that, you might say, that startling realization that I then turned to my good friend Tony Robbins. I opened one of his books, Awaken the Power Within, and that was the book that I needed. I was going through a dark night of the soul, and I opened his book. One of my sisters recommended that book. She said, "Look, Chris, I read Tony's stuff before. He's great. You should just check him out. It will help you get through this." I read this book, and it just transformed my life. I realized, oh my God, I have not been living authentic. I have no awareness of myself. Oh my God, there's this whole wide world of personal development that I didn't even know existed. So that was the book that was the catalyst that awakened just this complete hunger and inspiration and thirst for personal development. Because I felt like I'd spent my whole life. I was 30 years old at that point. I spent my whole life behind the eight ball, not really knowing what was going on. And then a whole world opened up in front of me. I started being coached. I went to trainings. I went to seminars. I went to retreats. I was reading a book every single week on personal development, and that just opened up my life in so many different ways. So that was the catalyst that opened up everything for me.
Wow. That that comes so close to life, because it was something very similar that shook me up about 25 years ago, and which changed which at least made me aware that I'm not being aware of myself. It was a similar kind of breakup, and I realized that, why is this happening with me? I believe that I'm a truly good person, and I'm such a loving person, and why does this happen with me? And but then, when I launched myself onto this journey of personal transformation 25 years ago, I can still see that, the first 20 or 22 years of my even personal development was also, I used to binge watch all these videos of experts. I was more into a spiritual journey, and at one point I renounced my family to become a monk in a spiritual order. But in spite of all this awareness, I still see that I was stuck even in that personal development. I was still in the chase game. I was more into creating. But if I look back, and I'll say that the point that separated these two journeys, of a journey which was filled with hard work, comparison, effort, and the next part of the journey, let's say last 3 to 4 years, which was kind of effortless, and has been moving towards effortlessness. And I give credit to something that I also read from your bio, and it was the understanding of three principles. And when I came across this work of Sydney Banks, and I came across this, I was introduced to this by Michael Neal, and then I got to understand a lot about this from Clarity, from Jamie Smart. And then it was because of Michael Neal that I heard about my guru, my coach now, Steve Harrison, and that's how it led to a new journey. And when you speak about Tony Robbins and this kind of a work, and then when I learn about you, and you talking about effortless way of creating life. What's been your experience, and what would you like to share about that, Chris? A path which is full of hard work, chase game, even if it is in personal transformation, and the path which is effortless, and you express your authentic self. What's been
Mm.
your experience with this, what I shared with you, Chris?
Oh, there's so much beauty in what you just shared there, Ranjan. Um, I mean, first of all, Michael Neal and Jamie Smart. I mean, they've been prolific in my life and in just discovering who I really am. You know, this formless, loving, intelligent energy, and not just putting words to that, but having insight into the nature of that, like embodying that
Mm,
deeper, deeper. So that's the most important thing for me is effortlessness for me now comes from that space inside me where I'm so connected to knowing my divine loving nature. And that's going to mean different things to different people. But what I mean by my divine loving nature is my connectedness to the same life force that powers everything. And when I'm in that connection, there is no resistance. So in a space of there being no resistance, there can be no effort. It's like the effort, when people say they're efforting, or when I experience myself putting in effort, it's typically because I'm pushing against something.
mm,
and and yes, sometimes there is times for that. Like when you go to the gym, yes, there is times to lift heavy weights, and yes, there is times to experience resistance. For me, the ideal way of creating is through that effortlessness, which is coming from connection. It's coming from the connection to that, the most true loving part of me. So that's what I mean when it's effortlessness. Do I experience 100% of my life effortlessly? No. But I'm looking to cultivate that effortlessness by finding the connection to that. I guess if there was a location that I would put it, it's more of the heart space. It's
mm,
finding more of the connection to that part of my body, and then letting that part of me guide me. And if I know that I'm experiencing resistance, I know that I've kind of lost my way a little bit. And so I know to come back to my true north, which is, okay, if I know I'm experiencing resistance, I'm not fully connected to my
mm,
soul and my heart. And I got to slow down. I got to pause instead of doing the thing that I was normally tempted to do, which is, well, I now to push even harder. And it must mean I need to push even harder and harder still. And that's where, when I first got introduced to Tony Robbins' work, he's very kind of hyper masculine.
mm,
I've sort of come back from that more sort of into the middle ground, the middle way, which is, yeah, there are some times where there's there to be pushed, and sometimes where I might stay up, a bit later in the night to get something done. But most of my life, I'm looking for that middle way, that
mm.
place where I'm connected to my heart. That's what I mean by effortlessness.
So what has been significantly different about your life since you have been finding this balance between efforting and effortless creation? What has been significantly different about your life, and now what have you been experiencing in your personal and professional growth, Chris?
Yeah, yeah, I would say an ease
Mm,
around how I feel about what I'm creating. So
mm,
I don't feel rushed anymore.
mm,
So there's an ease and there's a patience. There's a patience knowing that when I'm connected, that guidance will come through me. And
mm,
there's so much reassurance there for me. There's a
mm,
deep reassurance and a deep trust in life now feel from that, knowing that if I don't have the answer right then in that moment, that's okay. I can come back to the connection and the answer will come through, and it will come through when it's meant to
mm.
come through.
And
And
how, yeah,
mhm,
please go ahead. Please go ahead.
yeah, and I'm also much more comfortable with not knowing.
Mm,
Whereas in the past in my life, I haven't known the answer to something and I felt stressed about that. Right?
mm,
Or I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Oh no, this is a disaster. Now I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. I trust that I know at some point, whenever I'm meant to know what to do, I will know. And again,
yes.
so it keep coming back to that center point inside me where if I am meant to know, if I'm connected to that place, that's going to be the fastest point of connection to discover that. So there's an ease and there's a patience there, and there's a deep trust there, that whatever is meant to be revealed to me will happen.
Yes. I trust that, and I have experienced that, time and again. I've experienced that, Chris. When I wanted to learn about, when something happened in my life, that I experienced something which was beyond my physical dimension, and all of a sudden I found confused, and I didn't know what happened with me, but I was experiencing something beyond my physical experience, and I didn't know what it was. And from that day on, I remember, I went to places where I had my answers. I met people who would give me the answers. I met people who would connect me with the next people who I really needed in my life. Somebody entered my life, and which was for altogether, looking from outside, it looked as if they've just come for some short-term purpose. But then after about 6 months, I would realize that that small interaction led to a very longer conversation, and that led me to attend a few workshops which I was not aware of. I would come across, I would go to bookstalls, and I would uh, find books which would have answers to my questions, which exactly I was looking for. And it kind of, was, a serendipitous creation that was, as an answer, a universal answer to what I was asking for. And at the same time, the what we call in Indian language the Maya, the illusion, the illusion of this outside pressure, that, the competition, and working to catch up with the growth on the outside, the competition on the outside. So how do you help your clients understand that there is an effortless way to create your dream life?
Yeah, I feel like the first thing that I do with my clients is help them realize that that's a belief,
Mm,
that in order to create, there needs to be effort. So first of all, if someone's living in that world, they can be like a fish swimming in water that doesn't know that they're in water. And so if that's one of the most fundamental beliefs that someone experiences as true, there's a significant degree of repatterning to begin with, to even acknowledge that is you might say, the default way of being. That would be the first thing, to acknowledge that. Um,
mm,
and then experientially, that someone needs to experience knowing that creation can be effortless.
mm,
So I help my clients have the experience of letting go of the resistance of the things that are causing them to need to put in effort to create
mm,
things. So I see this as more of and I learned this from Jamie Smart. I see transformation more now as a subtractive process. So my job here is to help my clients subtract away the resistance, which is the Maya, or the illusion,
mm,
that is the apparent, you might say, the apparent resistance of, like, I've got to get through this. And so my job really is, my job as far as a transformational coach is, my job is to help my clients have insights to dissolve that resistance, which leaves them in a state of effortlessness. So it's you might say it's an insight-based process. It's not an intellectual process. It can only be experienced insightfully. And so that's one of the challenges that we're up against is, we could say, yeah, just don't put effort in, just be effortless. But it's one
mm,
thing to say it intellectually. It's another thing to actually experience it in a very embodied way. And so that's where
mm.
there's a whole range of cultivation practices, a whole range of breathing practices, meditation practices, journaling practices. There's like a whole suite of tools and practices that I give my clients to embody becoming that. So I'd say that's the big difference, is reading a book or reading a quote about effortlessness, in creation, versus actually being that. Two very, very, very different things that are, I work with clients for 6 to 12 months, and that's sometimes a 6 to a 12-month journey to embody that.
Yes, and probably that's exactly what we call the experience of, being and having at the same time, and feeling in alignment with your future, and experiencing that in the moment at an energy level. And and when I read this word from your bio, that you know you help, you're known for your ability to drive people and teams towards sustained and more effortless levels of high performance whilst maintaining alignment with their true, authentic expression. Chris, I think it was about 4 years or 5 years ago, maybe, when I was the first person in India who even started talking about authenticity, and that there is something that we are missing, and that's the missing link. And if we can understand uh, how to be an expression of your authentic self and just be who you are truly and be aligned with that, probably you will start living and creating life inside out. And that was happening simultaneously with my journey of inside out transformation. And today I see, like, this word seems to have become a buzzword with most transformational experts talking about authenticity. What has been your experience, Chris, with with you or anyone being in alignment with their authentic self?
Yeah, well, I would say the when we say alignment, well, we need to ask the question: alignment with what?
Mm,
And I feel like we set the destination for something that we want to create in life. And I feel like the place that we need to be resting in as we set the destination for where we want to go, when we're authentic, that means that
mm,
we're coming from that place inside of us that's free from contamination, that's free from distortion, that's free from, you might say, patterns or programming, free from compulsion. So you might say it's the purest, most true place within inside of us, which you might say is the best description I would say is uncontaminated. It's uncontaminated by external conditioned, you might say, like stimulus responses. It's something that when you tune into that, it's undeniably true for you. And so in order to get to that place, like even to connect to that place, to even ask what is the truth that I wish to create, even to free ourselves up from the distortion and the contamination, to even access that sometimes is a hell of a lot of work. And so that's the place that I'm talking about when I talk about authenticity, is what is the heart's desire, which is, you might say, to use a story from my life, my authentic truth, if you like, it wasn't really to study engineering. I didn't really
mm,
want to study engineering and become an engineer. I fell into it because of conditioning, because of this is what my parents think I should want, or this is what I think my parents want me to have, this is what I think society wants me to have. This is kind of what I kind of think I should be doing. I never really consulted my soul and my heart. Didn't make it wrong. It just meant that that choice was made from, you might say, a conditioned belief or a conditioned idea. Now, when I create, I come into my heart and I come into a place where I'm very, very still, inner, powerful, loving feeling. And I know that what I then create is pure. And that right there is, for me, is the art of living, because it's so, you'll know this as well from personal development. We have so much conditioning. Everyone is conditioned from the moment we were born. So to separate the conditioning from our true essence, that right there, you might say, is it's the real artfulness of authenticity there, to be able to sense the difference. And sometimes it's only like a literally a micrometer, like a tiny little amount of difference between our true self and our conditioned self, which potentially could be climbing the ladder of success, leaning against the wrong wall, which is what I did in my life. And now that I've been able to connect to that, I now have certainty that now what I'm connected to is pure. So that's what
mm.
I'm talking about when I talk about authenticity.
And how has that impacted your professional life and your choice, which later came into, like, you wanted to become a coach and you wanted to help others find this difference? So, how has this impacted your professional life, Chris?
Yeah, well, it gives me a true north. It
Mm,
gives me a undeniable true north reference point
mm,
for whenever I'm confused, whenever I'm going through turbulence, whenever I'm going through some resistance or challenge. I can come back to already knowing that I've already located my truth. And so there are going to be days, and in fact, there are days. There are days when I get challenged. There are days when I sometimes question myself, and sometimes I doubt myself sometimes. And I come back to that truth like every single day. And you'll know this from working with Steve, from producing your document. I also have my own document, which is an expression of my own authentic truth, which is the place that I come back to, which is a declaration around what I know in my heart to be true. That is, it changes in the sense of I upgrade it, but it's unchanging in the sense of this is my commitment. This is my commitment to continue to move towards being more of this. So for me, that true north, that's more of an inner state. It's an internal way of being rather than a physical destination to get to. But it informs where I go. It informs my choices. Whenever I'm in doubt, I come back to my document. Who am I? That's going to now give me a reference point as to, great, I now know where I'm going again. So whenever I lose myself, and it happens to every human, we go through challenging moments. There's death, there's breakup, there's disease, there's war, there's all sorts of crazy stuff that happens as being in this human life. And for me, having that reference point, which is a true north, is this central anchor point for how I create my life that I always come back to. And for the lives of my clients as well.
Chris, yeah, since I've been working with Steve for over a year, and I've still been working with my document, and he has helped me a lot with that, along with all the other coaches who have helped me. And I see that, when you have this document, and it kind of becomes your inner guru, that's always available. And it just becomes your way of being who you are. And at the same time, the moment you're out of alignment, it is there. It's telling you from inside, that something is out of alignment. And but on the outside, Chris, but the reason I'm asking this question is so that it can benefit people who might be new to what we are talking about, and the kind of understanding that people have. Oh yeah, it's good. It's good to have this understanding, but it doesn't work. It sounds too good to be true to create material results on the outside with all this kind of understanding. And who has got the time to wait for it to happen on its own or by itself? And so when the understanding with the world, which is dominated with the understanding that you need to put in a lot of pressure, a lot of effort to create big things on the outside. But at the same time, when I talk to some of my most successful clients who have been successful on the outside, is that after years of effort that they have put, and all that they have created, which seems to be very big on the outside, they come back looking for that inside thing. And they tell me that there is something that I'm missing. Right, the night before the Ultimate Experience India in Mumbai, I was talking to a person who can afford any amount of coaching from Steve Harrison, and he was talking to me, and he said, Ranjan, I want to understand this deeply. I have loads of money. I don't know what to do with this money. I don't have to even think about money, but I feel that something is missing. And I don't feel that I am complete from inside. But at the same time, there is also the kind of a understanding that because he has a lot of money, he can say that, and you can't say that unless you've created that amount of money. So this game of rush with effortlessness, and when people try to understand, somehow there is a domination from outside, that how do we find a balance in a world which seeks a lot of effort and rush and speed in order to create things on the outside, and at the same time not lose that being, that effortlessness of who you are and how you are creating spontaneously from your being.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there in what you just said. There's so much gold there. I feel like one of the biggest things that we're up against as a human is being distracted by, as you said before, the Maya. There's like we live in a world of distraction, and there's probably never been a time in the history of humanity where there's been so much distraction. You know, like you look at your smartphone and there's like thousands of apps. There's everything. There's so many different things that could occupy your attention. And for me, what it's about is it's about prioritizing coming inward as a central point, as a central practice, as like the primary principle of existence would be to come inward, and even at a practical level, to even just close your eyes. It's like one of the most powerful things you can ever do is simply close your eyes and take a breath. And actually just become aware of the fact that I am awareness, I am existence, I am. And so that simple practice, whether it be from meditation or from, you might just say, from ontology, or from pretty much any spiritual discipline, which is always coming back inside. It's always coming back into who actually am I, and closing. For me, it's about closing my eyes to the external world and allowing myself to bask in my own radiance, in my own consciousness, and cultivating that as a primary source of informing what I do every day. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to get sucked into my phone. I'll get sucked into, helping someone that I don't really want to help. Like the distractions are there. And so we need to be on guard. We need to be cultivating that. I'd say that needs to be the core of, well, for me anyway, I'll speak for myself. That's the core of my life, is to constantly go inward before I go outward. In fact, to be experiencing myself as the inward flowing outward, not as the outward flowing inward. So for me, it's so common, this idea of great, when I get the material success, when I get the thing in the outside world, then I'll feel a particular way inside me. And that's what I'm up against. That's what I'm just going to suggest you're up against. That's what we're all up against, is this outside in illusion of like my feelings are coming from circumstance. And that is a daily practice to rewire. My feelings are not coming from circumstance. My feelings are coming from who I'm being. I'm producing how I feel from who I'm being. I'm projecting my feelings onto objects. I'm projecting my feelings into the future. I'm projecting my feelings coming from the future, coming from the past. They're not coming from anywhere. They're being generated from who I'm being in this moment. So that for me is the greater truth. And it's so simple, right? When we come back to, I create my experience from within, from who I'm being. And whether you want to consider that from a three principles point of view, from being, from ontology, from NLP, from hypnosis, from any spiritual tradition, I believe they're all pointing to the same thing. It's the experience is generated simply from our quality of being, from within. And that's the highest truth that exists. And that's the anchor point we must come back to every single day to live a conscious life.
Yes, Chris. And how is this understanding and this experience in the inside out transformation now changed or impacted your relationships and the way you relate with people? And what has been the major difference between the Chris that just woke up after that breakup and this Chris who is now helping people create their dream lives, and by being fully in alignment with their true authentic selves?
I would say the greatest gift that's given me is the ability to take responsibility. The ability to respond to what shows up in my world, not just shows up physically in my external world, and take responsibility for that too, but to take responsibility for every thought, every feeling, every emotion, every story that I have, as me being the source of the creation of that. I create my thoughts, I create my feelings, I create my relationships, I create my ideas, I create my vision of the future. I create you right now. I'm creating everything. So for me, it's the ultimate responsibility is the responsibility of myself, seeing myself as the creator of all things. And then what that gives me is it doesn't give me a burden. It doesn't give me pressure. It's an honor to know that I have a central role in reality as being the creator. Now, by taking on that role as a creator, everything that I experience, it's on me. If I experience hurt or disappointment, that's on me. Even to the point where if someone comes in and robs my house and steals my stuff, that's on me. I'm creating that too. And it might seem like a stretch, but I'm asking myself, how did I create that? How am I creating that? And what's important there is to distinguish blame from responsibility. Two totally different things. Responsibility meaning I am here and I can do something right now in this moment to improve how I see my life, to improve my life. Like right now in this moment, I have the power. Blame would be putting the power outside of me to say that something did this to me. This is happening to me. And you could say that, well, yeah, that happened to me. If someone broke into my house, well, yeah, that happened to me. Now, I can take on that point, and I can also take on the point of I also created that. And I can fall in love with life happening to me and me also creating. But distinguishing, regardless of whether it happened to me or whether I created it, I'm responsible for it, which means that I just get to show up in this moment and ask, who am I being in response to this? How am I responding to this? So that for me gives me a lot of self-trust, because I know that I'm so committed and devoted to responding to whatever shows up in front of me. That's where I get my self-trust from. It's not from being able to predict the future or control the future, but being willing to respond to whatever happens.
Yes, Chris. And for a very long time, the training industry was obsessed about taking charge, taking responsibility, and still it sounded like, taking responsibility is a psychological trick or a mental trick or something that you do to tell that, oh, I am responsible. But it sounds now, my understanding or what I understand, it is an understanding. It's a knowing that you are responsible because you get to choose how to respond in the moment, and you get to choose every day, every single moment to anything that's happening on the outside. And as you said, you can always find you can always find an alignment between what's happening to you and how you choose to respond to what's happening to you, and that is bringing power back to yourself and to that authentic self. And I say there's this sound of I am. When you say I am this, or even you think I am this, I feel that it comes from that sound of Om, the Om word, which I feel is the sound of which we have been told, and it is the sound of creation, the word which creates. In Hindu, culture, we say Om is the word, and I say, oh, Om is the word that the word Aham, I mean me, I, that comes from, and aham is the word that is again in English I am. And I am is the sound of creation. I am is the sound of godliness. I am is the sound of a sound of expression of your true authentic self, and anything that follows that, I am conscious creation, and anything that you choose to do with it, play around with it, is your expression of your true self, and your conversation, your continuous conversation with the universe, and which is a blessing in itself. Like it's a seed planted in your own self of who you are, and when you connect with it, it's like a rebirth. It's a rebirthing experience, and you don't have to wait for something catastrophic on the outside to happen again and again to wake you up. Probably you can choose to live a conscious life, creating from taking responsibility through creating your I am, and in the moment. That was so beautiful from you, Chris. And when you said that, yes, I get to create you, you get to create me, I get to create the world, you get to create your clients, I get to create my clients. That's so powerful. That's so amazing. And I loved how you articulated that for us, Chris.
Mhm.
Chris, My question is, and okay, how can this impact performance in general, like for anybody, performance in work or performance in any aspect of life? How is this to do with performance, and how can it impact performance?
Yeah, I would say what we're talking about here is the essence of creation, the most powerful, the most ultimate place to be creating life from. That's really what I feel like is the question that we're exploring. Is if I was to create, which is what everyone is doing. When we talk about performance, what we're talking about performing in is the performing of creating something. And so for me, the question is, okay, what is the ultimate place to be creating my life from? And that leads us down many, many incredibly empowering pathways. One of which is when I'm experiencing, this is just, I'll speak in the first person, when I'm experiencing myself as a in the flow, connected, easeful, when there's a lightness there, I know that that's my greatest, clearest place to create from. So I'm looking for clarity. I'm not always necessarily looking for hype or for extreme rah-rah, like pumping my fist type energy to create from. I'm starting from clarity. I'm looking for what's the clearest place in myself that I can create from. So I have clear vision. And so for anyone asking, how can this help me perform better? I would say what we're talking about here is access to the highest level of performance that exists in reality, from the self-exploration to know for the individual what is the place that I want to create from that's the best for me. Okay, so I don't have the answers for everyone. I don't proclaim to know the answer for you or the answer for anyone else about how they should create their reality, but I'm a big fan of the truth, and the truth being self-revealing. And so when you ask someone, and when they sit in a space of self-inquiry, how would I love to create my life? From what place do I want to create my life from? For many people that have never even contemplated that, they've never contemplated there's a place that they are creating from. They've never even considered that. They just let me open up my laptop and let me just respond to my emails and let me at it. they're already they're already off the starting blocks out into the world, like just doing. And so I'm here to make the perhaps audacious statement that before doing anything, the most important thing is to check in and say, before I do anything, what is the nature of myself that informs all of my doing? Because am I going to be doing something that's climbing the ladder of success, climbing the wrong wall? Am I just going to be doing something compulsively, heading in that direction, feeling like I have to hustle and have to pressure because that's just how I was born and raised, to just kind of hush, to kind of, like just push, push, push. So for me, that's how I was raised. I was raised in the way that I was encouraged to be loved was to be pushed. Come on, Chris, you can do better. Come on, Chris, you should have straight A's. Come on, Chris, you should score more goals in the soccer game. Come on, come on, come on. So my core imprint growing up was that I'm pushed to succeed, that I'm not enough and I need to achieve more. And now that I've been able to identify that, I can repattern that. And I can now create from a space that allows me to achieve the same, if not more, because I'm now connected to a place that's much more calm, much more at ease, and I don't have the fear that's present. Without the fear that's there, there's more resources. So I would say for anyone out there that's questioning personal development or spiritual, development, what it's about is about the purification of oneself, to remove the contamination, to remove the fear and the compulsiveness that leaves us with greater resources, a higher quality of being that can produce vastly more in the world. So I'd say it's everything. Like it's the ultimate leverage point for creating everything in life.
Absolutely true and powerful, Chris. I remember as a child, I was always pushed to be the top person in the class, and I was compared with somebody, and I wouldn't be good enough or lovable enough unless I get that rank, or unless I get that first prize, or unless I am doing all the things that the top performers are doing. And this was a huge pressure on me to wear something from outside upon myself that can carry that mask for years and years and years. And you know, it makes a lot of sense when you look back and say, oh my God, there are many things that I was working which were not mine, and which I never wanted to do and be. And the aggression that comes from inside, and the perception of competition, existence of competition, because of you wearing that mask of that belief that's you're fighting against something, or you are to put pressure to become somebody in the world. And unless you become that, you aren't worth love, or you aren't worth even being yourself. And you don't get to express yourself unless you become somebody on the outside. And that's how we begin our days. And yes, when you said that, you the moment you wake up, you are like, okay, what do I do, instead of thinking, who am I going to be today? And what which being is going to inform my decisions today? And how am I going to connect with life today? Who am I sending into this world today? And today I help my clients go through the three phases of work with me, the way you and connects with you and your work. I start with the first phase, which is clarity, and the second phase then leads to connection, and the third phase to creation. And I see that people are in a haste. I want to create this, and give me a system, give me a strategy, and I just want to use that template to become successful on the outside. But this work that we are talking about, and that you are creating with your clients and I'm creating, is all about, where are you coming from? And you rightly said, the question that we need to ask is, where are we coming from? And which comes from the fundamental understanding of life inside out, expression inside out, being inside out, and creation inside out. And with all the other expertise and everything that you have from different various fields, how do you connect that with your clients, with your understanding of quantum mechanics, as well as something that is very practical, something that is very system oriented on the outside? How do you juggle with that, and how do you blend both of them to give the best results, create the best results for your clients?
Yeah, that's such a special and important question. I feel like what's most important is the understanding first. So before we even get to frameworks, or before we get to tools or processes, it's helping a client have a deep intuitive knowing of how the mind works, of how this whole system works. So I feel like there needs to be a series of deep insights into the nature of reality, of which the three principles, the inside out nature of reality, is incredibly important. I would say being, and the nature of being is also incredibly important. So you might say that the field of ontology is quite important, that informs that. I would say a non-dual perspective is also really important, to understand essentially the oneness of life. And then for me, one of the most important tools of transformation, a gift that keeps on giving, is understanding the impact of the language that we use.
Mm.
And so a big part of the trainings that I run and the work I do with my clients is helping them become aware of the consciousness inside the language they use, how every single word we use has a frequency, it has a creative power, and it either has a power to create or a power to destroy. And so even becoming aware of the language and language structures is incredibly empowering to know, is my language the highest form of creative power or not? So I would say language is up there as well. And then I would say there's a blending of some of the other modalities that I'm experienced in. One of the more important ones would be internal family systems. For those that may or may not be familiar with that, that's a way of integrating our parts inside of us. So within the oneness and within the wholeness of our consciousness, there is fragmented parts of us. You might say, sometimes we refer to, part of me wants to do that, but part of me wants to do this, right? So inside of us, there is actually, you might say, very divine aspects of us that have competing interests that need to be integrated, that come together. So when there's the integration of the psyche and those parts, There is the wholeness. There is, you might say, instead of having like a board of directors, instead of there being the finance manager, the HR manager, and the CEO all kind of fighting with different opinions, you bring them all to the table and you find out, great, what does everyone need and how can we harmonize the team? And so the same thing happens inside the psyche. So parts integration for me is another big part of what gets married into the overall process, which you might say is a psychotherapeutic aspect that I love to bring to my clients as well. So, and then all of that gets blended in with the framework, which is, you need to start somewhere. You need to basically move through some kind of sequence of change work processes. And at the same time, there is also infinite scope and infinite possibility to go wherever is needed to go in any conversation without any linear constraint as well. So I do have processes and frameworks that I think sequentially make a lot of sense for people to move through. And sometimes you throw all that out the window and you go with whatever's present in the moment. Like right now in this moment, this person might need to scream into a pillow. Like right now in this moment, this person just might need to go and maybe break up with their partner right now in this moment. Maybe this person needs to get off the call and go and repair a relationship with their father, or like whatever. There are frameworks and there are systems, and then there's also just intuition coming through in the moment as well. So I'm a big fan of reverting to both when required.
Fantastic, Chris. It's so powerful, to understand the generative power of language, and it's so much available to all of us, and yet, we ignore the power of language. And were you there with me, along with me, on this John Patrick's session?
I sure was.
Oh yeah, the insights that I was getting, and since we all do a lot of deep work and we connect very quickly with what John was sharing, and I one insight that I got, but oh yes, although we understand the power of language, we use our speaking and talking as if we are spitting words. And when Stuart Pearce said that, one advice that I would give everybody is eat your words. And when you eat your words, it's like you're conscious. You know what you're speaking about, and you know the power of your every word that you utter. But we go through life as if we are spitting words onto the outside, and as if that has nothing to do with us, and as if our speaking and talking has only to do with somebody who hears it on the outside or listens to it on the outside, forgetting the fact that it is being manufactured in you. It's being created in you. And any word, spoken or unspoken, the first person who's going to be impacted, or in fact created in the process, is actually the one who speaks. And you cannot have changed a bit at your cellular level, at your molecular level, once you have spoken something. And the moment the word is created, something has changed in you. Something has been created in you. And I see this as the simplest, the most powerful tool that all of us are blessed with, even to understand that we have this secret tool of language, which, the place where we can start transforming our journeys. And if we can start listening to what we are speaking, I think that informs a lot, that tells a lot where you're coming from. And and if you can be just aware of that place where that conversation is coming from, I think that is the path to fall in alignment with your true self, which is the easiest way, I feel, to start consciously creating the self that you want to experience. What do you say, Chris?
Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. And it's the connection to that self that is so important.
Yes.
That is the foundation from which we can speak higher quality words into existence. You know, we're creating from. It comes back to, where am I creating from?
Yes.
Who am I? Who is the self that is doing the creating, and what is the quality of that self? And then one other distinction I find really, really helpful in coming back to being more conscious as a creator is, am I describing the world as it is, or am I generating the world that I wish to create? And if I get stuck in describing what is, I mean, yeah, I could say that that's true. I'm describing that there's a tree there and there's an orange tree there. And like, yeah, I could describe what is. But what would I love to create is a much more powerful way of using my language.
Yes.
What I'm creating, I could either use language to create, or I could use language to describe what is. Which one gives me more power?
Yes.
And obviously there's discernment there. But for me, I like to live in the land of, I am creating, I am generating. And so I know that if I'm describing too much, I know I've lost my power, because I'm just,
yes.
just describing things doesn't give you a lot of power. Creating things is what gives you power.
Yes. I was looking for something, which is exactly what we are talking about. And just about a few, I think 4 or 5 days ago, no, 4 days, 3-4 days ago, uh, I was describing, I was trying to, I just sat and I started describing what I am is. And I created around there was a declaration. I just wanted to sit with this declaration, and I said, I let me explore describing it. But then I found that I made a 3-page notes on only the first 2 words, I am. And I was overflowing with everything that I am is. Forget about the rest part of the declaration. And I was making I'm just not finding it, but I made around 3 pages of notes only on I am, I am, I am. Uh, and then something happened, and Steve called me, and he coached me for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I told him all these things, and he said, Ranjan, are you open to something? I said, yes, Steve. And he said, well, Ranjan, all that you wrote can be summed up into one sentence. I said, yes, please share. And he said, I am is creation. Just that. I am is creation.
Mm.
And yes, it's absolutely unnecessary to fall into the trap of describing when you're already experiencing the power of creation.
Mm.
And he said, you do not have to describe it. You just have to declare it and be that.
That's where all the power is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it feels, yes, I am is creation. I'm conscious creation. I'm divine possibility. I'm infinite value. I'm committed love. I'm infectious fun. I'm powerful service. I'm overflowing abundance. I'm grounded presence. I'm spontaneous wisdom in action. I'm humble gratitude. And what a blessing we experienced this together. Chris, it was an amazing experience, sharing this presence.
Thank you, Ranjan. Thank you. It's been beautiful. Thank you for sharing yourself. I've loved this. It's so good talking about the most important things in the universe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. You are creating some wonderful things for people inside out, and I wish you a great success in what you're creating inside out. Thank you so much for being the master of the day on this show, Moments with Masters, and being with me.
Thank you so much.
Love you so
I love you.
much.
I love you too. Thank you so much.